Good evening. This is a real quick demo. It's a 2-for-1 deal. It's a speedrun and a demo of Pokemon Yellow. Because the 80% category is kind of interesting. And it's very short. It's very short. Because this game is very ambitious for the time, the first generation. But perhaps a bit too ambitious. In as much as it's held together with bits of string, really. But hey-ho. That's quite good for us, because it means there's a lot of tricks you can do. The very first step is resetting completely. That's incredibly important, otherwise it won't work quite right. It's both important and really important, which is the most important you can be. So the start of the game is, as you'd expect, just fill in the normal details. I've had to sit through this so many times at this point. It's very good. This is basically the only Pokemon speedrun where you don't bother picking the shortest names because it's just never shown enough times. So this does get a bit technical very quickly, but there's a lot of computer scientists here. This is a community society crossover, so hopefully it all makes sense. This is the one tricky bit. We break the #1 rule of gaming. Reset halfway through a save, which you never do this. Don't try this at home. You might ruin your save file, or you might strike gold, or bad luck. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out, but that's all right. Just give it. That's the fun thing. You can just reset and give it another go, and see if the cutscene again. It's like I've had like 1 and 2 times. It's about a 4-frame window to get the proper timing on this. I'm hoping, for the sake of the host here, that it doesn't take too long, because that makes me look bad. I don't want that. But it's alright, just go through again. Technically you can reset the timer between these, but that's alright. But yeah, let's try that again. Because annoyingly, the not interesting bit is this bit. Everything before you cut the save. God bless. I like the timing. It's like you can't go too early, you can't go too late. It's somewhere in that grey zone after pressing that. Oh, here we go. Like, okay, so first I have no Pokemon, right? Sure. But I can switch them anyway. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I have no items, right? Well, actually, I have a couple items. I have this item here I quite like. I'm going to move it down. Quite a long way down. Much farther down than you ever should be able to go. That's alright. Pop it here. But actually, I don't like this item. I'm going to toss a couple. Just like that. And go through the door, and there we go. We made it. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Yeah, the game was this easy the whole time. No. So, I promise, this does all add up. There is a good reason for a bunch of random steps. Yeah, not yet. When I get through this, I've still a lot to do. Now it's time. Let's go. No. So yeah, it's there's a lot of quirks at play here, but I think they're quite interesting, and I like to explain them. So we come to the edutainment part of this speedrun. I'm now going to speedrun through some Google Slides real quick. Bang. What was that, basically? Like, what on earth was any of that? That seemed like a lot of sort of randomish steps, but it all makes sense. If we firstly just real quick define a goal, right? So the main here, we need to edit some memory, right? And because we're in a house, when we go out the exit, the game needs to know where to put us when we leave that door. And that's stored in address number 2364 in the game's memory, which is the sort of outside map ID. And if we were to, I don't know, be able to edit that value and send it to very specifically 76, which is the location of the Hall of Fame, by going out that door, it'll dutifully warp us there. But okay, how on earth are we going to get there? That's a very specific operation we need to do. So we first need to talk about some save corruption. Why does quitting through a save cause all that random junk to happen? So we've got to talk real quick Firstly, the reset, I told you it's important. It sets everything to a bunch of Fs, where this is hexadecimal, so FF is 255. And the blank save file very specifically looks like this, such that when we save the game, well, actually, a save isn't quite a save at all. It's actually 3 separate functions the game has to do. It firstly saves all of your sort of player data, your name, playtime, etc., and then it saves all of the box data, which actually, considering in this case, is nothing. We just started the game. Your Pokemon in storage is none. And this will sort of do nothing for a couple frames. And then finally, it'll save the data for the Pokemon in your party. And the most important value is this one highlighted here, which is the current count of how many Pokemon you have in your party. Normally during a save, this will get overwritten with 0, because we just started the game, there are no Pokemon yet. But what if you try to break this a little bit? So say after saving the player data, but while we're saving the box data, we were to, reset the game. We end up with a save file that looks a little like this, where we have all of the valid player data at the top. But most importantly, it never resets our current Pokemon out, and it remains as that default FF, or 255, which is why that reset was so important. Otherwise, that value could just be garbage. But wait a minute, that seems a bit too straightforward. Surely they wouldn't just forget about that, our kind developers. Only 5 of them, by the way. I don't know how they put it together. Okay, they did think about this. They use a system known as checksums, where a checksum is very simply a really lossy form of compression. It will take this entire block and convert it into perhaps just a couple bytes. And the general idea behind a checksum is 2 different save files will have 2 different checksum results when you run that algorithm on it to sort of generate checksum. The more you might notice, I've actually been quite lazy here, and I've just taken the first 4 bytes of each save file. But in reality, the actual function will be much more complicated, and it'll take into account all parts of the data. But just for now, this will do. And when you save the file, what it will do is it'll after it's finished saving it, it'll scan over the save file, calculate that checksum, and then save that as well, such that when you load the game, it'll recalculate that checksum from the save file, compare the 2, and if they're the same, it'll let things through. But that's a problem for this run. Because if we were to quit halfway through saving, the checksum never gets updated because we never finished. And when it tries to generate the new checksum and compare that, it doesn't match. And the game will say save file corrupt, as it did one time there. Not very good. So, man, that's it. What? It's over, right? Just go home? Not quite. They messed up. Because you might recall what I said, that it was 3 separate functions the game uses. These are 3 complete functions that you could in theory just run one of them. So each one, when it's done, will recalculate the checksum for us. Nice. So it means that if you, for example, just run the third one, you won't get an invalid save file, which is bad. And this gives us a window, because after saving the player data, like so, the game will then dutifully recalculate the checksum, because that function is done. And if we were to, I don't know, while saving the box data, because quite fortunately, saving the box data does nothing, because by chance the default Fs and an empty box are the same thing. So the game will dutifully spend a couple frames saving all of this box data, and we have to reset now. Well, look at that. We now have the not only do we have the correct save file, but we have a correct checksum as well, and so the game will let us load with this mess of Pokemon count. But okay, fine, that's alright. But why does it matter having more? The game thinks you have more Pokemon than 6. That doesn't seem very good. Well, here is some data, right? It's just some data. It doesn't mean much by itself, but trust me, this is data. Okay, fine. We can give it some labels. So in the way that the game's memory is laid out, this is the sort of real time, not the save data, the sort of real time memory. The game will interpret these first 6 rows as your first 6 Pokemon, and then straight after that comes the bag info, and straight after that comes a bunch of miscellaneous info. Funnily enough, in that miscellaneous info contains our golden address that we want to edit. But of course, remember, data is just data, right? You can interpret it how you want. Say you're, I don't know, the Pokemon screen, and you think the player has 250 Pokemon. You won't see those 2 lines as bag info and misc info. You'll just see that as more Pokemon. Why not? Like, no one says it can't. No one ever programs a safeguard for that. So if you were to, I don't know, switch Pokemon 2 and 8 around, well, we've just overwritten that data value. Nice. but it's not quite as nice as it could be yet, because it's been overwritten with FF instead. That's not what we want. And also it's just overwritten a bunch of other miscellaneous data, which we probably need, otherwise the game will most likely crash at that point. So, fine. Man, that's not very good. We need a more fine-tuned way of setting that value. And thankfully, we have that. The bag. Because not only are bag items really small, it's just an ID and account, but you can toss items. And that's really good, because tossing items allow you to change that value by just a little bit, which is what we use at the very end of the run. So, but the problem is our bag is currently it's currently correct. We need to make it incorrect. And funnily enough, a switch of Pokemon 2 and 7 will do that for us, because your current bag size is 0, but you can just swap that around. Why not? And now we have 255 items. This is known as the expanded bag glitch, and it's useful in a lot of other memory exploits. But for this purposes, we just need to change one value. But okay, we now have this bag. But what are you going to do with that? Well, remember, you can store 20 items in the game. Now, well, this is a sort of actual diagram of the memory. I went through with a memory editor and viewed it myself. Where you have the sort of first 20 items here, which are stored by an ID and an amount. All right. But remember, data is just data. So if the game thinks you have more than 20 items, it'll just start reading the values right after it as items. Because why not? Who says you can't? And funnily enough, item number 36 is the most important one here, because that is our golden memory address. And funnily enough, we also have access to item 6 here, which is a stack size of 81, which is a little bit higher than that 76 we want. So if we were to, I don't know, switch them round, then great, we now have 81 as our current outer map ID. And if we were to, I don't know, toss 11 of those, because remember it's hexadecimal, so the gap is a little larger, then bang, that's it. We've now just changed the memory, and we have gotten to our win condition. Address number DT64, we've got set to 76, so you can then close the menu, leave the door, and there you go, that's Pokemon Yellow. So that's a real quick run through on the importance of memory safety, importance of putting safeguards in, and what really happens if you do cut every single corner in game development. The Pokemon Yellow is really interesting that there's so many ways to just completely split it open. It's got its own wiki page at this point. It's nuts. But yeah, that's all sort of got time for today. I want to thank WASD for having me. It's been a good day out, and hope you'll enjoy your evening. Have a good one. No, thank you. Bye.
Okay, so we've decided to switch around some runs because the person running Devil May Cry has other commitments and won't be able to do stuff after a certain time. So we're going to switch to do an online run now. And in fact, you can switch to the dark mode if you want to, because that is the online run. Okay, and I would also like to read out a donation that we received during the previous run. And that is a £25 donation from from Mike Space Hunt, who has made the comment that Blummo is the best Celeste speedrunner ever. Less than three. Nice try there. Mike Space Hunt. But yes, thank you very much for donating £25, and I hope you enjoy all those raffle tickets.